with a lot of gratitude, we move on to the next session, which is the cat and the dog meat trade, challenges and possible solutions. This session is being moderated by Manoj Gautam. Manoj Gautam is the Executive Director of the Jain Goodall Institute in Nepal, which works in the field of research, conservation and education. A conservationist and an animal welfare advocate, Manoj's special focus lies towards devising long-term sustainable systems to address conservation and animal welfare issues. Through community engagement and partnerships with government at the base level, Manoj has led various successful initiatives that aim at creating social and administrative systems that induce human behavioral change and are self-relying. Manoj, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's an absolute honor. I know it has been a very stimulating day for us all, and it'll only increase to be so. So without further delay, this session is a single speaker session, as you might have already seen in the schedule. Just as a prelude, before I pass it on to our esteemed speaker, we usually see many among us who are visibly super passionate in our kind of line of work and get easily overwhelmed and exhaust ourselves relatively easily. And many others seem to comfortably continue to contribute, but more on a hands-off manner, or if I may, on one line of work such as policy or research and so on. And many of us hands-on activists without emotional accents tend to sometimes even antagonize more stakeholders than we actually bring together. And we all know how easy it is to take it on ego, or sometimes to ride the easy tides, as many of us have seen, of the easy tides of blaming, shaming, bashing, and thrashing, whether it's countries or cultures, choices or traditions. Such is the character of the kind of work we do, very emotionally charged, and driven by passion, and hence the trends. To remain uninfluenced by so many factors, and to remain and to maintain the sharp objectivity, rigid objectivity, and sharp focus, and sometimes flexible strategies and relentless continuity, is a walk very few can attempt to walk. Such is the exemplar walk that our today's esteemed speaker has walked and beyond. Picking on one after another, the more vicious and also viscous issues in one of the most sensitive areas. This is, politically, administratively, and also culturally speaking, basically. Balancing between and bridging to starkly different cultural domains. That's China and West, if I'm allowed to generalize in that sense. Walking on some very fine lines and not only achieving remarkable achievements, but also conditioning governments, winning their faith, and helping one of the oldest, richest, and largest civilizations in the quest to standardize, contemporize, and then also to institutionalize the newer and more compassionate forms of human and animal interaction is definitely a feat that can only be observed once in an era. So Jill Robinson, ladies and gentlemen, is undoubtedly one such unique giant in her generation, who is an inspiration and trailblazer for many in our generation, actually. So it is an absolute honor for me to be introducing who I myself know as a heroine from a hero-less time. We all know, the Bears barely had that many heroes back then. But Jill Robinson does not need any introduction. May it be Dr. Dog Initiative, her pioneering work with the bear bite farms, or more recently the work with the stray animals and the highly sensitive dog and cat meat trade issue. Jill has a lifetime worth of things and experience to share. So let's just get enlightened about the more recent developments on the issue of dogs and cat meat trade in China, and enrich our understanding through her deep insights on the matter. So let's welcome Jill. Meanwhile, please make notes and share if you have any questions, so that I can already start aligning them in order. Thank you very much. Over to you, Jill. Welcome.
Hello everyone, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today, and thank you so much to FIAPO and the Blue Cross of India for kindly coordinating and hosting the Asia for Animals conference today. The title of my presentation is The Cat and Dog Meat Trade, Challenges and Possible Solutions. And over the next 25 minutes, I'll be talking to you about the challenges that we've faced over the past few decades in China, and some of the solutions that have been implemented, especially by the Chinese authorities, that have been so well supported too by the local NGOs, including Animals Asia. There have been some interesting developments over these last few years, and in February, many of you may have known last year that the ban on illegal trade in wild animals was implemented on a national level. Just a little while later, there was also a ban on the consumption of wild animals in China, although the trade in wild animals for traditional Chinese medicine and for science and display was still allowed. In May of 2020, something quite significant turned up when the Shenzhen city government excluded cats and dogs on the edible animals list. And also that same month, Zhuhai city said that dogs, cats and other domestic animals do not belong to the scope of edible animals. Then that same month, on the 27th of May, a rather groundbreaking action was implemented, and that was the National Catalogue of Livestock and Poultry Genetic Resources came into effect, that had removed dogs from the livestock list catalogue. Cats were never on the list, so by default they were removed too, which meant that it was now illegal to sell both dogs and cats for consumption in China. Now, the catalogue is not a law, but it does have legal implications when taken into account with the food safety law and also with the animal disease prevention law as well. And also this catalogue that was implemented by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs was also approved by the State Council as well. Now, in July of 2020, we saw the Laixi City Market Supervision Bureau notice to the city's food service operators, and this was referring to dogs as non-food animals and also strictly prohibiting their slaughter. And as we know, as a result of all these regulations, there's a very good scope of progress, but there are loopholes. And one of those loopholes is if you slaughter and eat your own dog, then that is not going against the letter of the law. However, you cannot sell that dog meat for consumption either. And I think what was really rather remarkable as well, coming out of the livestock catalogue and the decision, were the comments of the local government officials across the country who said that they felt that they'd reached this decision because of recognition as dogs, as our companions, that they help society across the world, and of course both cats and dogs were our friends as well. So just to clarify, that it is now illegal to sell both dogs and cats for consumption in China. And although we have a long, long way to go on enforcement, as we see the industry obviously will be kicking back, there is a mechanism within the law now to be able to move this forward. And I do honestly think that the building blocks that local NGOs, of which there are about 250 across the country doing fantastic work, those building blocks, together with Animals Asia, of course, have really encouraged these decisions for removing dogs and by default cats from the livestock catalogue. And so I'm going to talk you through some of these headings over the next few minutes. Of course, from a practical level, the investigations that myself and our team at Animals Asia, the fantastic cat and dog welfare team in China, have been carrying out to slaughterhouses, to live animal markets, to restaurants, to supermarkets, coming through with the same conclusion time and time and time again, that dogs and indeed cats are not farmed in any great numbers at all, but the majority of cats and dogs that find their way to the food table are indeed stolen. We've also been able to advise perhaps or at least confirm to the authorities as well that while these animals are stolen, this is also showing great disharmony, social disharmony within the community. And there's no government in the land that wants to see that happen. And that while people's private property in terms of their dogs or their cats are stolen, this obviously, of course, is disrupting social harmony within the community. We've also been able to show that there are not these large dog farms that are operating across the country as well. They just simply don't exist. And again, that the majority of dogs and cats are stolen, as I've said, and also that the cross-border transfer of dogs and cats is a perfect vector for the transmission of rabies and other disease, which of course is also the last thing that people want in their community. So removing dogs from the livestock catalogue has allowed us even perhaps stronger momentum to be able to report to the authorities the illegal restaurants that we're finding now. So over the last year, we've been reporting illegal restaurants in 10 cities. We've been receiving many, many tip-offs from the general public, and we've reported 164 restaurants to the authorities, who have seen now 96 responses and have either closed those restaurants down or prohibited them from selling cat and dog meat on their premises. We've also throughout this time been able to report to the online platforms whenever we see cat and dog meat for sale. And so far over this year, again, we've seen 53 dog meat products removed from the online platforms, and also 3 dog meat restaurants addresses removed from Gautam app. We've also been calling for a nationwide small animal protection law to again assist in the removal of cats and dogs from the livestock catalogue, so that this can also be a more forceful programme moving forward. And indeed, it seems that the word is getting out, and we're seeing many, many pictures like this now of restaurants now stopping the sale of dogs and cats. Some of them are quite make do and mend, as you can see the second picture from the left there. They've simply crossed out dog meat from the picture there, but that's fine. It just again shows that the word is getting through, and restaurants now are adhering to the new regulations and have stopped selling dog and cat meat on their premises. Sadly, as we know, the rules will still be flouted as the industry continues to try and push back. And, you know, again, this is all down to us working as a community, if you like, with the NGOs, with government officials, in trying to adhere to the new regulations. But there will always be exceptions. And as I say, the regulations are being flouted and will continue to be for a while yet. And we know this example better than anybody. This was 2 dogs, Tojai on the left, the black dog, and Muppet on the right, who we rescued from the meat industry over 10 years ago. And sadly, Tojai this year lost her life to the very same industry that she was rescued from. This was her rescue in 2011, 10 years ago, where we saw her in one of our market investigations, and she broke our hearts, and we just, of course, wanted to rescue her on the spot. It was a tough decision, but she was chosen, and it wasn't the easiest rescue. She didn't want a lead put on her. Of course, we didn't want to risk carrying her because of the risk of rabies, so we had to pop her in a cage and take her out of the market. But once she got through on the flight back to our sanctuary, our bear sanctuary in Chengdu, she saw a whole village of people that fell totally in love with her. And it was on a day in January of this year that our bear and vet team director, Ryan, was taking her out for a walk. And within a split second, she had seen a piece of chicken bone on the floor. She had eaten it, and within moments, she had lost her life. And it was the most dreadful, dreadful tragedy. We sent the chicken bone sample to a laboratory, and it came back positive for cyanide, so that we knew that there were people in the surrounding area that were deliberately baiting dogs, and possibly cats too, of course, for the dog meat trade. So this made us even more determined to help with the regulations that had just been passed. And we went around to our local surrounding villages and interviewed everybody. And we found, quite surprisingly, that in the past 2 years, over 1/3 of people had seen their dogs stolen and removed for the dog meat industry. Many of the villagers said that they thought that the traders were coming in from outside, and they also said that if they found those traders, they would beat them. So this obviously gave us the opportunity to work more cohesively with the local village heads, with the community there, and the authorities, and we were able to put up posters around the surrounding villages, obviously advising people, please keep your dogs on a leash, go out there and make sure your dogs are vaccinated and dewormed, and always report any theft of dogs or cats on your property where you suspect they've been taken for the meat trade. We've also now working on putting up billboards at the entrance of the village, and we hope to replicate this with other NGOs across the country where we can do the same in other villages and other cities in China. Every year we hold conferences in China, whether they are just with NGOs or whether they are with both NGOs and government officials. And this is where we can all get together and share some of the problems and some of the solutions to those problems too. And Animals Asia, in effect, acts as a bridge, if you like, between the two communities of government and non-government organisations, where we're able to talk about such difficult problems sometimes, such as prevention of rabies, of the illegal cat and dog trade, improving shelters, whether they are government shelters or whether they belong to NGOs, and of course, responsible dog ownership management. And it's not just a case of forgetting about liaising with government officials when those conferences are over. It's really, really important to maintain that that position of trust with government officials long after the conferences are done. And this is something that we've been doing for many, many years, as have so many NGOs across the country as well, because we can continue working together and showing that good dog and cat health in the community also means a better community health. We can talk about submitting amendments to certain regulations. As soon as we've built the trust with the government departments, they're far more open to listening to some of the amendments that we suggest, including even asking them if they would maybe change some draconian regulations, such as banning dog walking, for example, in the community. So again, it's really important to keep up a very solid and trustworthy relationship with the government long after those conferences are done. I spoke about public health, and this is something we need to be proving time and time again, that this horrible industry of the trade in dogs and cats really implicates public health. And so in 2019, we actually got together over 400 brain samples from dogs in slaughterhouses, and we sent them off to laboratories where they were tested, and out of those over 400 samples, 3 came back positive for rabies. And this is very significant when you think of the millions and millions of dogs and indeed cats that are consumed in China every single year, and especially when there is no source of those dogs, when there's no detailed records for if those dogs are healthy or whether they had symptoms of rabies, etc., etc. So we've been able to categorically show that there's a very significant risk of rabies within what we call the black dog meat industry chain. We've also been investigating dog farms if ever they arise. And remember, I said to you that they are very rarely out there, but just recently we heard of 2 so-called dog farms that our team, again, our cat and dog welfare team, went out to bravely investigate. And what they found, the first farm they visited, was that there were between 30 and 50 dogs being bred in a backyard every year. And the second farm that they visited, or so-called farm, was in fact breeding pit bulls, so not even for the dog meat trade. So we were able to conclude from that, again, that there was no way that these 2 facilities were able to be supplying what, a so-called legal industry at all. And that was something that we've been able to, bring back to the attention of the authorities if we need to. So to work with the local community, we need to understand the local community, and it's very important to carry out regular surveys, which we do. And this latest one was in January, between January and March of this year, where we interviewed 500 people in Guangxi and we interviewed 1,500 people nationwide. And through the results of these surveys, we can then formulate our public education programs appropriately moving into the future. So I don't have time to go through the whole survey because we had 13 questions and we're still collating them. But there were 4 significant questions that I thought you'd be interested in. The first was, if you've eaten dog and cat meat, what is the reason for eating it? Is it because you like the taste, or do you think it's good for your health? Or do you, were you invited out by friends and family? And overwhelmingly, the response came back that yes, people are largely eating dogs and cats on social occasions when they're invited by family and friends. We then said, where do you think the dogs and cats on the dining table are coming from? Do you think they're coming from farms, or do you think they're being stolen in the community? And once again, overwhelmingly, most people believed that there are specific dog farms and cat farms being set up for the trade in dog and cat meat, which again, as we know, is far from the truth. We then said, if you know that the cats and dogs in the market are mostly owned, would you still eat their meat? And once again, a resounding 93% of those 500 people interviewed in Guangxi said no, they wouldn't eat stolen dog and cat meat if they knew, and over 95% nationwide also said a resounding no. And finally, we said, well, what would cause you to give up dog meat, refuse to eat it, or what has caused you to give up consuming dogs and cats? And the top two answers that came back were, eating dogs and cats is cruel, and dogs and cats are friends of humans. So this really gives us a key focus now, again, in public education programs, to keep showing that the large percentage, the majority of dogs and cats are indeed stolen, and also how much companion animals can help us in society as well. And I thank the heavens for a program that I began about 30 years ago in 1991 of animal therapy. And it wasn't the easiest program to start, I have to say, but it went on to be a very successful program. And this was after the matron here on the right, the Duchess of Kent Children's Hospital. She said, I've heard of animal therapy. You can have 1 hour in the garden with one dog. And this was after many, many hospitals had rejected the same request. And that was all it took. Max went over to this paraplegic boy. He placed his big golden paws on the boy's bed, and you can see this boy's face just lightening up, and with a big, big smile. And from that second, Dr. Dog was born. And I'm so proud to say that there are, well over 1,000 dogs now in the community, in hospitals, disabled centres, homes for the blind, the sick, the deaf, the elderly, just really giving people, when they're feeling down, what they need most of all, a very best friend that offers them unconditional love and helps them to forget their problems for a little while. The same Dr. Dog program now is in 10 regions of Asia as well. Dr. Dog also helped to create a new program in 2003 called Professor Paws. And Professor Paws goes into schools to help children enhance their reading abilities. And time again, it's been proven in papers across the world that children with any reading disabilities are far less embarrassed to read to a dog than they are to a teacher. And the reading materials that they read from can be anything you like, but of course, super, super educational, as we have in this program. So they're reading about the environment around them, they're reading about animal welfare. If they have dogs and cats, they're reading about how to look after their companion animals appropriately. If they don't have companion animals, they read about how to, for example, approach dogs safely in the community, how to recognise their body language. They also get awarded with an animal cadet certificate, and they get to go back to parents and families and friends to talk about this amazing collaboration that they've made with dogs in their community, perhaps to people that are a little bit cautious of dogs, again, because of their propensity to spread rabies and other disease. So it's a beautifully rounded program that sees both children and adults very quickly coming on board. This is just a snapshot of the program in the last year. Obviously, we haven't been able to get out into the community as we'd have liked because of COVID, but we've been doing a lot of online sessions, you can see here, and again, reaching thousands of people out there in the community of China. We should never underestimate animal therapy. It's a beautiful program and it works. And there are, again, many papers out there that confirm this. But again, there's nothing better than, a face-to-face example of this. And this was an elderly gentleman who had end-stage cancer, and he requested a Dr. Dog visit. And after the visit, he wrote a beautiful letter to the hospital and said that the Dr. Dog visit was better than any miracle drug that he'd been given. This was at the United Christian Hospital, and it was just such a wonderful thing to hear. And this was his doctor. This is Dr. Oscar, who gave him so much love in the last few days of his life. And if anyone would like to know more about Dr. Dog, if you'd like to start a similar program in your community, please just get in touch with either myself or the team of Animals Asia, and we're very pleased to give you the manual so that you can start the program. We don't have the resources to be able to allow it to be called Dr. Dog and oversee it, but again, you're very welcome to have the manual to start a similar program, to name it anything you like except Dr. Dog. So public education awareness is super, super important, as I've been emphasising. And I think that the decision by the authorities to remove dogs from the livestock catalogue was perhaps made a little bit easier because they knew, or they recognised, it would be a popular decision within the Chinese community. And I think that that decision, you know, has been helped again by the many NGOs collaborating with government, as we have been over many, many years, seeing more of a social harmony in China with cats and dogs, and seeing people more engaged with these species in terms of how they can help society as a whole. So it's never going to be a waste to be going out there, doing public events, handing out leaflets and putting up banners in society to get people more connected with our very best friends. It's not just for the adults, it's for children, of course, too. And these sort of programs can be very inexpensive as well. So, you know, we have a painting competition every year for the kids, where this was over 400 children submitted their painting entries, Hope for Poor Friends. The winning entries were then put up free of charge. We just had to pay for the printing and the production, and they were put up in bus stations, coach stations, etc., so that literally hundreds of thousands of people can then look at the outcome of this painting competition, and again get a see a better connection with dogs and cats in society too, through the eyes of children. We work very closely with NGOs across China as well, of which again there are over 250 very passionate, very intelligent groups that really get amazing work done. And you know, if we can provide a little bit of advice every now and then, we're very happy to be able to do that. You know, some small examples like removing cats and dogs from cages and putting them into at least small areas where the local community, if they're coming along to adopt cats or dogs, can see them in a much better environment too. So it's just, you know, lots of little things that add up to a big part, so long as you've got that collaboration with NGOs. Over this past year, again, we haven't been able to get out there as much as we would like to in the community because of COVID. But again, we can, you know, all do online programs too, which are very inexpensive as well. So just some quick examples. We worked with a legal agency in Shanghai in training techniques for the NGO registration, which is a very hot topic in China. It's quite a difficult subject. It's quite hard to get NGO registration, so of course we were delighted when we had the local experts to help us. We also bring in international experts, such as the wonderful Paul Littlefair from the UK's RSPCA, who shared a little bit to NGOs about their animal welfare education. Other topics included how to respond to donors when they give you funding, how do you say thank you appropriately and keep these people on board, and other topics such as reading cat behaviour, etc., etc. Talking of cats, they weren't left out as well in the community, and despite not being able to get out as much again as we wanted to, we were able to work with NGOs across the country on trap, neuter, return programs, and indeed we coordinated with 21 organisations and helped over 200 cats to be neutered, vaccinated and dewormed and returned to their community of carers. So last but not least, again, I keep emphasising how important collaboration is, and it really is, and even amongst difficult subjects. And this is just one last example of that, where a trap neuter release organisation suddenly realised that one of their community cats was missing. Luckily, they'd fitted the cat with a GPS collar, which they followed all the way from Shanghai to Guangdong, and that was over 1,400 kilometres, where they came across a warehouse full of over 200 cats and also some dogs as well. They got in touch with the local authorities, with the media, with other NGOs. They put this story out on the social networks, and they were overwhelmed with 70 million reads of this story and 1 million comments. And also the local authorities agreed to take action against the illegal traders as well. So this just goes to prove that collaboration with government officials, with NGOs, with the media, with the general public is so important now that we've got the mechanism of the law behind us to effect positive change. So from me, thank you so much again to FIAPO, to the Blue Cross of India, and to everyone listening in. And just to emphasise again that a cold nose and a wagging tail is just what the doctor ordered. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jill. That was very enlightening. So much in there, for all of us to basically, generate some idea about such a scenario, and in particularly talking about the level of sensitivity that is around cultural sensitivity and others as well around this particular issue. So thank you very much for the enlightenment. Do we have any particular questions that have? Oh yeah, we have loads actually. Without further delay, we still have a decent amount of time for question and answer. To shoot away, it's quite a broad question, Jill, but I think it fits you very well. What does it take to get the attention of authorities? And was it a gradual maturity of the movement, you think, in the area, or did any particular set of events help in the recent achievement? Could you shed some light on that?
Yeah, thank you, Manoj, very much. It's been a really long journey, I have to say. In the early days, honestly, sort of 25, 30 years ago, when we were doing the investigations and we were talking to local authorities, there wasn't the same commitment there. Of course, there are our Chinese team, and that's, Suki, Deng and Saber Jiang, who actually are online now as well, because I wanted to bring them in. I'm just so proud of them and the whole team, and in fact, all the NGOs across China who are really working collaboratively with the government officials with whom they've built up trust over these last few decades now, to the point, I think, where the authorities do realise that it's not, it's multifaceted, this programme. It's not just cruelty, even though cruelty, we should be looking at it as something utterly horrific, but it's something that affects the local community as well. So I hope Suki and Saber are online and people can see them as well. And hopefully they can help answer questions too, if they've got anything to add to this question.
Absolutely. Feel free to jump in, guys. And congratulations on the great achievement. And thank you for all that you do. I've been reminded that we might actually have to talk a little louder. Right. So just raise your hand, Suki, and if you have something to add on to that, please go ahead.
I think Jill has beautifully summarized how we cooperate with the government side. And because this is really a comprehensive issue in China, ship management work in China, and talk to different cities, to the officials who are in charge of this work. Yeah. So it's just need us to do in all the aspects to push forward.
I think it's also, Manoj, inviting them to things like Dr. Dog programs and Professor Pro's programs, so they can see these dogs in action. I think sometimes, the local authorities, they're picking up sort of street dogs. They're not really integrated with the absolute power of animal therapy and everything that dogs can benefit society with. So again, it's bringing them along to kind of open eyes and show them just what a wonderful species, that we're working on.
Exactly. I mean, when we keep seeing this very, highly emotionally charged, like I mentioned earlier, reactionary, kind of responses. I think it makes a lot of sense that Dr. Dog kind of initiated it, must have had that crucial impact in also kind of changing the perspective the way the larger denizens see the dogs or understand the dogs.
Animals benefit society.
Lovely, that's brilliant, isn't it? So basically, you just touched the idea of so many other NGOs and groups, basically collaborating and wanting to positively collaborate with the government. Because this is something that I keep hearing about, and there's a lot of discussion about the so-called sensitivity, and there's a lot of antagonizing of that political domain, if I may, and also culture. Like I said, like bashing of the cultures and the polity in general is also quite a trend. Do you actually more often? This is the question. The reason I've actually selected this question is because I think this could benefit a lot of newcomers, who want to put their hands into this. Have you ever in a society where things could be a little bit strained out because of cultural sensitivities that, yeah.
I think again, as I said before, it's holistic. It happens over decades, and I think there are more and more companion animal owners now in China, and more government officials recognizing too that they have a great place within the community. And celebrate. I think, as I said in the presentation, that government officials have actually said that the reason they removed dogs from the livestock list was because of their place in society and how they help humankind across the world. And that doesn't happen overnight. That happens over decades and decades of general sort of gradual integration, if you like, into the community. Saber, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yes, from the local group's perspective, that they are also a crucial part for our collaboration. So we always think it's like a triangle thing. So we will ask everyone in this field, departments, and together we will together we will to help the communities. We will have some educational activities and to help the government see that local NGOs can also help them to improve the whole situation. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you, Suki. That perfectly segues to the next question that I actually had listed. So basically, just in brief, how do you suggest the newer groups? Which level of the government is it same throughout all levels, or what would be most prudent and most efficient for the newer groups to basically approach? What level of the government should they begin to collaborate with, or what is the gateway into this? Because I see there's quite a volume of different groups willing to put their hands into this issue.
So for the local government in China, we like in almost every city, we have the departments that are specifically in charge of the dog ownership management work. So for the first step, maybe the local groups, they need to talk to them and try to develop some cooperation. And for the local groups, they have different working aspects. Some they also will talk to the local food safety departments, maybe just reporting the dog meat restaurant, and sort of like that.
Lovely. Thank you so much. One of the last, if not the second last question is, what is the global, how is the global outroar? Like after the COVID outbreak, there's been a huge outroar globally, and also different insinuations about the potential source of the virus. How is that aiding to this particular cause? Talking about this specific, decision of the government. Is there any? Has it impacted in any way, or what is the general temperament in China like since then?
Do you want to go for this one?
Sure. I mean, I just think it's completely separate, to be honest, Manoj. I think what it did was, we obviously know that, there's been sort of problems in every country, but, in China, I think it just showed the incredible flexibility and passion of the local groups that were able to help, dogs in the community, dogs and cats in the community, that were unfortunately abandoned, you know, during this time when people couldn't get back to their homes and things. So what you saw was a real coming together of the community during this time. It was really wonderful to see. And, you know, Suki and Saber and team were able to work with the local NGOs to get food to those dogs in flats that were empty, in apartments that were empty, obviously when people couldn't get back to help and feed their companion animals. So, you know, there were positives as well that came out of this in terms of how animals were able to have been helped in the community.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jill. Do you have anything to share with our young animal rights activists? Any suggestions, you know, your 2 cents, words of wisdom?
Oh, goodness. Oh, gee, that's a yeah, I mean, please just go onto our website because we've got children's programs and things, and you know, just goodness, I can't, you throw me a real curveball there, Manoj. I can hear Karina, our education director, screaming at me, except she's not, but she must be screaming from her computer. You know, again, just go online, have a look at our website, bags and bags of programs, start things in your own schools, you know, start programs there to talk about companion animals and how much we can help them. And as I said before, we're really, really happy to help with Dr. Dog programs, like giving the manuals for free. Except you know, we can't have it called Dr. Dog because we can't oversee it in other countries anymore because our resources are stretched. But you know, just get out there in the community and we'll try and help as much as you can.
Lovely. Thank you so much, guys, for all that you do, and lots of blessings from this part of the world. And hope that we all remain healthy and keep up with this fight, strengthening this movement throughout Asia and throughout the world. Namaste from Nepal. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Manoj, for being such a fantastic moderator. And thank you so much, Jill, for your time, for your effort, for all the wonderful work that you and your organization do. Suki, thank you so much for joining us and for giving in your precious inputs and all the terrific work that you do in support to what Jill does. Manoj, once again, heartfelt thanks for being a fantastic moderator. And do stay with us for the last session coming up if you can. And stay safe, stay well.